Hello everybody! I'm so excited for you to be here, no matter if you're a reader, a writer, or a CS girly like myself. In today's video, as you can see, I kind of changed the background. I moved things around in my room so that my bookshelves would all be like behind me. So I hope you like this new change. In today's video, I decided to recommend you some romance books for the summer because I know summer is the season of romance and I decided I needed to share some of my favorites with you. I think I have a lot of different categories here. I have some popular books that I wanted to recommend because I also like them. I have some books that I haven't seen talked about that much on the socials, so I thought that maybe it would be a great idea to show them to you and talk about them to you, so maybe I could convince you to read them as well. I also have some short audiobooks that I've listened to. You could also try those. Those are really short and sweet, so if you like having a walk every day, maybe you could listen to those while you walk. But yeah, that's kind of the plan. First of all, I am going to talk about Lean Painter, and more specifically, first of all, I want to talk about Better Than the Movies and also the sequel, Nothing Like the Movies. To be honest, and I think this is kind of an unpopular opinion, I loved the sequel so much. I thought it was so relatable, but now I'm gonna recommend the first book specifically. So what is this book about? The main girl character, her name is Liz, and she has been living next to this guy, his name is Wes, for her whole life. They've been basically childhood besties. And the thing is, this sounds like a romance plotline, right? She thought the same thing, but this guy annoys her so much. She's like, yeah, there's no potential with this guy. They're also fighting for a parking spot, which is also kind of straining their relationship, so that's not nice. But the thing is, they end up becoming friends. And how does that happen, you're probably asking? Oh well, I'm happy to tell you. So, there's this guy that Liz had a crush on, and basically he moves back to the city and moves back to the same school that Liz and Wes go to. So now she is trying to win that guy over. How can she do that? Well, Wes is the solution, because Wes is apparently kind of besties with this guy, and Liz is like, okay, if you help me win this guy over, then you can have the parking spot. But as you can probably tell, while they're working together to try to help Liz win this guy over, they start fake dating and actually they start falling in love for each other. And this book is so sweet. Like, if you love the To All the Boys I Loved Before vibe and rom-coms in general, I think you'll enjoy this so much. It's cheesy, I'm gonna say that, so if you're not a fan of that, maybe don't try this one. But for me, I loved it so much. I thought it was so sweet, and their relationship. And also, Lean Painter is really good at giving us bonus content. On her website, you can find different chapters from this book written from Wes's POV, which is really nice, and like, he's so obsessed with her. Wes in the sequel is like, period. He's studying engineering, just that's my only spoiler that I'm gonna give you. And he's so smart actually, and this book is really happy and hee ha ha ha. The second book, it's talking about trauma and how people react to it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a bit, I would say, a little bit harder to read, but yeah, I think this whole duology is really nice. Then I also have The Do-Over by Lean Painter. This one I still haven't finished. I still have this much left. But basically, the gist of it is that the main girl character, her name is Emily, she ends up reliving Valentine's Day over and over again. And basically, she sees her boyfriend cheat on her multiple times.
Because that happens, on that specific day. So because she relives that day, she can see multiple times happening.
Anyways, and she ends up falling for this guy who she gets in a car accident with. This is why the cover is like this. And yeah, nothing happens to, like, they don't get hurt, any of them, but that's how they start talking basically. And they kind of know each other, but they never talked really and stuff, so they start getting to know each other through these days. And it's like, it's so nice. Honestly, I like this one as well. I like this one more, but this one is really nice too. Also, I am gonna talk briefly about Betting on You, which is another book written by the same author. So Betting on You basically is about these two teenagers, and they have divorces in both of their families. They end up meeting on a plane, talking about it. And the girl character, she's really like, you know, she plays by the rules. She doesn't want to inconvenience anybody and stuff like that. She doesn't want to take up any space. And the guy, he doesn't really care about that. And like, they end up meeting again after some time, I don't know, a year or something, because they work at the same place. And they end up making a bet kind of about two of the co-workers that they have, and they're like, okay, these two people are gonna end up together. One of them says that yeah, they're gonna end up together, the other one says no, they're not gonna end up together. And you know, they basically have this bet. And they also, there's also fake dating in this one, and you can see how the fact that they become friends and later on, you know they get together, obviously, because this happens in every romance book. But this thing, how this impacts both of them, because they both change throughout the novel, which I think is really nicely done. So yeah, these all are by Lynn Painter. Next up, let's talk about The Summer of Broken Rules. This book I also saw on TikTok quite a lot, so I'm gonna try to not go too much into detail. But basically, Meredith loses her sister Claire, and every single year her and her family used to go to this vineyard and spend the summer there with all of their extended family and stuff, and play games and have fun. But after her sister dies, obviously for some time they don't feel comfortable going there anymore. But this summer they have to go because one of her, I believe, cousins or something like that is going to get married, and they want to get married in that place, so they all go there. And basically every single summer this family plays a game of assassin, and you know, they make quite a big deal about it. So there's a prize and stuff like that, and Claire, Meredith's sister, used to always win that thing most of the times. So Meredith wants to honor her sister and win for her this year, and she ends up falling in love with a guy that's the groomsman, I think, which is really nice. And like, their relationship is so sweet, and the whole family dynamic in the book is really nice to read about, and how they had all of these traditions that they used to do, and how these people that are kind of new to the family, they also join in on everything, and they're all having fun and stuff. And the romance is just a sweet added bonus to it. There's no spice in this book, and obviously not the other ones that I talked about before, so just putting it out there. But you should read it because it's really nice, and I think actually you would enjoy it if you enjoyed what I just described. Next up, let's go into Abby Jimenez, who is an author that I discovered recently, actually. I mean, I discovered her 2 or 3 months ago. Until then, I haven't read anything from her, but then I became obsessed. The first thing that I'm gonna recommend from her is her Part of Your Word series, I would say. Here I have the second book, so I'm gonna talk about this one first. There's a funny story, actually, because I read Just for the Summer first, which technically is the third book, but they're all standalone, so you don't necessarily need to read all of them. But there are some characters, for example, from this that show up in other books, and the same goes for all of them. So you should basically kind of, read all of them in order. But anyways, I didn't. So I read Just for the Summer first, then I read Part of Your World, and the third, this one, which is the second one in the series, like normally, I read the last. So yeah, I still understood what happened, but maybe you should try to read them all in order because they were all really nice. I enjoyed all of them. So let me first tell you about this one. Brianna is going to a divorce. She finds out that her husband basically cheated on her, I believe. I think so, yeah. I think he cheated on her or something, and they end up getting a divorce, and she's in this really bad place because aside from this thing that's happening to her, her brother needs a kidney transplant, so she has a lot of things on her plate. Enter this new doctor that ends up working in the same hospital as her. His name is Jacob, and obviously they don't start off in the greatest way possible. There's a lot of misunderstandings in the beginning, but he ends up writing her a letter which she reads and realizes that, oh well, this guy is actually kind of nice, we don't have to be enemies, he actually is also sweet, and what he wrote in this letter, I really like it. And we later find out that Jacob, like, donates one of his kidneys for Brianna's brother, and you know, she doesn't know about it until it actually happens. And after it happens and after she hears about it, she's like, girl, you didn't have to do that. And they basically end up fake dating because, so Jacob was together with this woman, right? But then his brother gets together with her and they actually get engaged and they, you know, are going to get married, and everybody in the family doesn't know how to feel about it because they're like, well, you dated Jacob before, you did this to Jacob, and like we have to, you know, keep Jacob safe and blah blah. So they're like, we don't know if we actually agree with this marriage. And because he's a people pleaser and he wants to please everybody, he's like, I would like to have a fake girlfriend. And like, he doesn't really ask Brianna to be his fake girlfriend, but given the situation, basically Brianna offers to be his fake girlfriend because, I mean, he doesn't want to make his family hate his brother just because of what happened, because he's the best guy ever. Anyways, so yeah, that's kind of the basic idea behind this, and I really loved it because, I mean, also because it has anxiety representation, and I thought that it was really well done, and I really also enjoyed that aspect of it. So if you would be interested in reading a romance book that's really nice on the romance part, but it also has some other things that it talks about, then maybe you should pick this up. I think this is in general true for all of Abby Jimenez's books, even though they have romance in it, and you know, the romance is really prevalent. There's also something else that is talked about, some trauma or, you know, some other stuff that the characters are experiencing that makes the story even more interesting. So this is yours truly. Then part of your role is basically about Brianna's best friend, and Alexis basically comes from a family of doctors. They really have really big plans for her and all of her family, and like even her grandparents and, you know, the people before them, they were all doctors in this specific hospital, I believe. So there's a lot of pressure on her. And when her brother shows up, he's like, yeah, basically I am married to this pop star and I'm just gonna leave you guys. There's a lot of pressure that gets put on her, and at some point she randomly ends up in this small town. She basically gets stranded there, and she is helped by this really sweet guy that she, you know, after some time finds out that he's 10 years younger than her, and they kind of have a one night stand in the beginning of the book, and that's what starts off everything. And like, the guy is a carpenter, they come from two completely different worlds, but they end up falling for each other. I was trying to remember what his name was, and I loved him so much, but I swear I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm gonna put it somewhere here, but yeah, I really like that one. And the guy was so nice, and the whole small town aspect of the book was really enjoyable. And that basically, that book also talked about the idea of, you know, if you're put in a situation where you have to choose between what your family wants, what people around you expect from you, and what you really want, what should you do about that? Just for the Summer, which is the first one that I read, in that book specifically, so the plot is kind of like this. The main girl character, her name is Emma. She ends up stumbling upon this Reddit post where this guy is like, yeah, so every single girl I end up dating, after we break up, she ends up finding the love of her life. So I'm kind of cursed. And she replies to that message and she's like, actually, the same thing happens to me. So she decides to meet up with Justin, and I think that's his name, question mark. Anyways, and they end up deciding to meet up and start dating, because they're like, okay, so then if we both date each other, after that our curses are gonna disappear and we're gonna meet the love of our lives after we stop dating. But obviously things don't work out quite like that. So honestly, I recommend the whole series. You should definitely try all of them. I loved all of them. They are all above 4 stars for me, so I really love them. Okay, so let's move on to the short recommendations that I have for you. which all of them basically I listen to them on Audible, but I think some of them you can actually find them on Kindle as well. So the first two are from Ebi Jimenez and they're called The Worst Wingman Ever and The Full Risk. I'm gonna put the covers up here. So basically the Full Risk is about these two people. One of them actually, he got into a pretty bad divorce. He was really in love with this woman, and I think she ended up getting together with her cousin or something like that. Question mark? I think that happened, right? Anyways, yeah, I think that's the thing. And there's this other woman that she's really scared of men because she had this really bad experience with a guy that basically started stalking her and stuff. And yeah, he even started threatening her, and it was a really scary experience for her. So when she moved to a new city, got herself a new identity and everything else, she also started training actually to be able to, like, if she encountered this guy again, keep herself safe basically. And they both end up getting stranded, I think on Valentine's Day, on the same floor of this building because I don't know, someone took away the stairs, I think, that they used to get up there. There was a whole misunderstanding and stuff, and basically they have to stay there for a weekend, and they both end up, you know, getting closer to each other. And this story is really short, but I thought that it was really, really nice and interesting to listen to, honestly. And it had the same, you know, Ebi Jimenez vibe, so that I also quite enjoyed. And then the other one, which is called The Worst Wingman Ever, this one is basically about a woman that is going through the loss of her grandmother almost, because her grandma is almost dying, and you know, she has to deal with everything, be there for her because she's also a nurse, and she ends up taking care of her grandma every day, so she sees everything that's happening to her. And obviously that has a really big impact on, you know, her mental state and everything like that. And the story starts when she ends up finding this card in her, I don't know how you call that, but you know, the window of her car or something. Anyways, and that card is from a guy, and he was supposed to put that card in a different car, but he got confused. The thing is, he was trying to wingman his brother, wanted to do something nice for Valentine's Day, I think, for his girlfriend or something. So yeah, the card was kind of spicy and stuff, and this girl just, you know, finds that card and she's like, what's happening here? I have no boyfriend. I was not expecting this thing here. And these two people start exchanging notes, and he starts doing nice things for her, but they never meet. And this is how they start communicating. And that one was also quite enjoyable. So I would recommend both of them to you. And next, I have kind of a series. I grouped them all together. I'm just gonna talk about one of them specifically that I like more than the other ones, but all of them are quite nice. So they are by Cara Bastone. I think they're all, you can only listen to them on Audible though. And they're called Maybe This Time, Seatmate, and Better Luck Next Time. And I'm gonna talk about Maybe This Time because this one I liked the most. So basically, the storyline here is that June ends up 80 years in the future, and she's, you know, she doesn't know what to do with that information. She can't talk with anybody from her past, and she's basically stuck there until one day her phone connects to this phone number from the present time, which is the phone number of Mikey, who she was a teacher with at the same high school, I believe. And basically, she has to convince Mikey. I mean, he's easily convinced, but like, her and Mikey have to work together to make present day June not end up in the future. That's the premise of the story. I'm not gonna disclose anything more, but I really, really enjoyed that one, and I thought it was really sweet, and the romance was really on point. And like, the main girl character, she is, I think, a literature or English teacher, and she also talks about poetry, and this guy ends up talking about poetry with her even though he's a gym teacher, which I also really enjoyed. So like, yeah, I liked that one a lot. And now let's get into the ones that are not that popular, or I haven't really heard people talk about them that much. So yeah, let's start with the roughest draft. This one I don't have in physical format, so I'm just gonna show it here. I also talked about it in the last video actually, so I'm gonna be quite short on the explanations. But the story is about Katarina and Nathan, I think. Yeah, Nathan. And basically, they used to co-write books together, and they wrote this really, really good book 3 years ago. It was a massive success. Everybody enjoyed it. You know, it was a great book. But then they decided to never write together again, and they never told the press actually what happened, so nobody knows. But they never went back together to writing. Nathan started writing by himself, but his books never, reached that point that the book he wrote with Katrina did. So they have to work together again because they have this contract, and on that contract it's mentioned that they have to write another book together, which they never did. So even though they quite dislike each other, nobody still knows why. I mean, there is a lot of speculation. People think that they hooked up or something really nasty went on. We also know that Nathan was either engaged or married. I don't actually remember, but one of those two while they were working on that book. So there's a lot of drama surrounding their whole relationship and dynamic. And, there are a lot of things that people believe about what happened 3 years ago. And yeah, they have to go back to writing the book. And we get present time and also a past timeline, so we see them and see how it was writing the book 3 years ago together and how it's going writing the book right now. And we get to know what actually happened all that time ago, which I really enjoyed. The fact that it's about two writers, and I really love the way that it described their creative flow and the way that they bounced ideas off of each other and talked about writing in general and how different their writing approaches were, but how communicating and working together made their two different writing styles work and blend in so well. I really loved that part. And yeah, I also liked Nathan. In my opinion, he was kind of a lover boy, which I obviously really liked. So yeah, next up I have More Than We Can Tell by Bridget Kemmerer. I never saw this book talked about, so I'm just gonna tell you about it right now. Basically, this book is about Emma and Rev. Rev got adopted at some point, and he has a lot of trauma from his childhood because his father was really abusive. And then Emma, I think she makes an online game or something. She's a gamer basically, and she plays this game. She has an online friend in that game and stuff. The way that Rev and Emma meet is that at some point Emma, I think, is walking her dog, and Rev is really overwhelmed by everything that's happening to him, and he ends up running from his home, and they end up randomly meeting one night in the streets, and then they start talking. And I know that this sounds like a pretty boring, pretty basic story, but hear me out. The themes that this talks about, aside from like the gentle love and the friends to lovers and everything like that, is so interesting. Rev's father was, I think he was a priest or something related to that. I think he had something to do with the church, I believe. And there's talk about religion here. There's also talk about cyberbullying and stuff like that. And I don't know, all the emotions that teenagers go through. So even though people in this book specifically are teenagers, I think this is for a little bit of a more mature audience if you really want to get into everything else. So I think this has a lot of depth. There's also romance in it, but if you want something new, something different, maybe try this one. On that same note, lastly, I have these two books, which are An Emotion of Great Delight and A Very Large Expanse of Sea. These are by Tahara Mafi. Probably you know her from the Shatter Me series, but these ones I loved. I read them in, I think, 11th and 12th grade, from what I remember, and I enjoyed them so much. The female protagonist in both of them, she is Muslim, And basically the books talk about the experience of these two Muslim girls that wear a hijab in two different historical, really important historical contexts. The action in this book happened several months after the US officially declared war on Iraq, and this one happens after 9/11. So yeah, and we can see how these things impacted these protagonists' English, I don't know, English, anyways, lives. And there is some romance in both of them. I wouldn't say that romance is the main thing. So like if you go into these ones expecting just romance, these are not for you. But if you want to read something different, as I said before, if you want to read about some other like social commentaries, trauma, things like that, I think these ones are really, really interesting reads. And also the romance in these books, even though it's not, as I said, the main part of the storyline or anything like that, it was so enjoyable. And I honestly, this one I enjoyed a lot, but the side plot of romance was not my favorite. But this one, the guy in this one was so gentle with her and so nice, and he tried to, I don't know, he was so patient and he was always there when she needed to talk. And she's more like grumpy, she doesn't want to talk, she's also kind of, from what I remember, she's also kind of scared to talk to people, and she masks that. And this guy actually has the patience to be there and ask questions and try to get to know her, which I thought was really nice and heartwarming. So I really loved both of these. I don't know if I made a really good job explaining them because I've read them quite some time ago and I don't remember everything that well, but I know that I love them, and I hope that if you pick them up you also love them. So this was the video for today. I'm really excited that you tuned in, and let me know if you have any other recommendations down below, and I'm gonna see you all in the next one. Bye bye.